Your father is dead. There is no police, no court, no prison, no government. There is only his family, and yours. If your family does nothing, everyone knows it can be attacked without consequence. So your uncle kills one of them. Now they owe your family a death. And two people who never met your father are killing each other over something neither of them started. This was one of humanity's oldest problems, not how we learned to fight, how we learned to stop. A fire that kept us alive through the rain, that freed the iron, did one more thing. It made a place where people could argue. Two people, one fire, a dispute between them, and a question hanging over both. So the question is not whether ancient humans fought. They did. The question is how any of them ever stopped. When did ancient humans start fighting? Not with one event, with a wound. Here is the fact the internet loves. A few thousand years ago, the number of male lineages contributing to future generations collapsed. Some genetic models produce an astonishing ratio, perhaps one reproducing male lineage for every 17 female lineages. The internet translated that into something much simpler. 95% of men were killed. The biggest war in history before history. There is one problem. The DNA is real. The war is a story. At Jebel Sahaba on the banks of the Nile, archaeologists found some of the earliest evidence of sustained violence between human groups. Bodies buried along the river, many with stone projectile points, still embedded in their bones, 13,000 years old, give or take a few thousand. The dates are argued over, the wounds are not. Somebody drove a stone point into another human being. That is not yet a war. It is one of the oldest wounds we have. About 10,000 years ago, on a lake shore in what is now Kenya, archaeologists uncovered the remains of at least 27 people, several showing evidence of violent death. The honest answer, we do not know if this was a raid, a battle, or a feud. But the violence was real, and the reason is gone. About 7,000 years ago, in what is now Germany, the first farmers of Europe buried their dead in a mass grave, 34 people. Men, women, children. None of them had defensive injuries. They were not fighting back, they were fleeing. The killing blows were made with stone adzes, mostly to the head. 16 of the dead were children. The younger women were largely missing. One possibility is that they were taken alive. The settlement had walls, palisades, built against other people. You had to wall yourself off from humans. This is the point where the wound becomes something organized. Why here? Why now? The answer is not that farming made people violent. People were already violent. Farming changed the economics. Before farming, there was less to sit still and wait to be stolen. After farming, there was grain, animals, land, stored wealth, all of it in one predictable place. For the first time, there was loot that did not move, and somewhere predictable to raid it. Raids became worth it. Walls became necessary. Violence did not start with farming, but farming made it pay. And something else, something hidden in our blood, suggests the cost was even higher than we realized. So was the Y chromosome collapse the war. The collapse is real. The war is one explanation and not the only one. Some researchers say patrilineal clans split up peacefully and fragile male lines simply faded. Others say a few successful groups out-reproduced everyone else. The DNA argument has a hole in it. The female line mutates so slowly that the same event would barely show up there. And a drop in male diversity could mean something killed boys before they grew up, not a war of men. The honest answer, the DNA is real. The war is a story we tell because it is more exciting than the truth. The truth is a cycle. Our boy grows up knowing that someone's blood is owed. His uncle remembers the day. The other family knows retaliation is coming. It hangs over them like weather. This is the blood feud, and it can outlive everyone who started it. A death demands a death. That death demands another. Grandchildren fight a war their grandparents started, not because anyone is evil, because a family that does not answer a killing announces that it is safe to kill them. Revenge was survival. And that is what made the cycle so hard to break. Every death owed another, until somebody invented a different currency. Peace technology that changed everything was not a law. It was a price. Instead of taking an eye, you took the payment for an eye. Instead of taking a life, you took the worth of a life. Humanity's most revolutionary idea was, at heart, a very grim price list. Eye, this much. Finger, this much. Tooth, a surprisingly precise amount. Dead farmer, considerably more. Ancient customer service was having a terrible day, but it was the first day that a life could be paid for instead of taken. In early Germanic law, a life could have a legally recognized value. The amount depended on who had been killed, their status, their freedom, or place in society. It was brutally unequal. It wasn't equality. It was arithmetic. But that wasn't the revolutionary part. The killer's family could pay. The victim's family could accept. Every body part had a price, and the price was cheaper than the war. And the payment was not punishment. It was repair. Return what was stolen, work the lost hours, share a meal that said you were welcome again. Now the boy's family faces the choice: blood or silver, revenge or the price. For the first time, the debt can be closed without a death. For the first time, this child does not inherit a murder. Eventually, they wrote it down. About 4,000 years ago, a Sumerian king named Ur-Nammu wrote the oldest surviving law code we know of. He claimed to have eliminated enmity, violence, and cries for justice. Most people think Hammurabi wrote the first laws. He did not. Hammurabi came 3 years later, and his code is famous for one line: an eye for an eye. People hear that as a license for revenge. It was the opposite. It was a limit. You cannot take 2 eyes because somebody took 1. Revenge now has a ceiling, and even then, for most injuries, you did not take the eye at all. You took the silver. The written code made the limits public, knowable, and harder to change in the heat of revenge. The feeling was the feud. The thinking was the peace. Here is the uncomfortable part. By some measures, humans today are less likely to die violently than humans in many societies of the past. Exactly how dramatic that decline has been is debated. But the mechanism is ours. The boy grew up with the payment, not the revenge. His family counted the cost and decided the cycle was too expensive. The price of a life became the first thing written about justice. The code became the court became the state, and slowly, the right to punish moved from the family to something bigger than the family. An eye for an eye became the limit, and the limit became the peace. For millions of years, humans knew how to hurt each other. The civilization-changing invention was putting a price on revenge. The fire that started this argument is still burning. Now it lights a courtroom. You still pay for a crime. You still settle out of court. And somewhere, a boy grew up without killing anyone. When humans finally found ways to stop one fight becoming 10, something else became incredibly valuable: memory. The elders who knew the price of a life, the grandmothers who had seen the cycle before, the people who remembered every dispute and every cost. Losing them was worse than losing a war. This is the old human. That question is next. If you made it this far, thank you. Subscribe so the next story finds you. The fire is still burning. This is the old human.